No, we got it. This one, we're not.
Screenplays actually.
This, we found out like 1:30.
Okay, that's all I
Well,
know.
no, I was on the phone with an interview.
Because they called us at 1:30. No.
Make it yourself. It's not going to get made. So there you go.
We're here today to discuss two different unconscionable acts by Derek Chauvin that took place in 2017. Derek Chauvin is exactly where he should be, which is in federal prison. He should have been fired in 2017. He should have been held accountable in 2017. The supervisor that was involved, the supervisors that were involved, should have made sure that he was held accountable in 2017. If the supervisors had done the right thing, George Floyd would not have been murdered. To John Pope, Zoya Code, and anyone else that has experienced this kind of egregious conduct at the hands of Derek Chauvin, our city deeply apologizes. I apologize. The video that may be released by the plaintiff shows interactions that took place and will be extremely uncomfortable for people to see. To be clear, that is where we have been. That is the department that has needed changing. But that is not where we are going. To the officers that are presently in our Minneapolis Police Department that are enraged by the kind of conduct that Derek Chauvin committed, that is the kind of person that we want in our police department. That is the direction that we need to go. The actions that we have taken over the last several years are taking us in the right direction. Are we there yet? No. We have a whole lot of work to do, and every single person up here recognizes the importance of that work at this particular time. I'm joined today by our Chief of Police, Brian O'Hara, by our City Attorney, Kristen Anderson, by Council Member Jeremiah Ellison, by Council Vice President Lene Palmisano, and by our City Financial Officer, Dashani Dye. They should be able to answer additional questions as we move through, but I wanted to make sure we talked directly to our entire city as this video may come out. We feel strongly that sunlight is the best disinfectant. Regardless of when it happened, it is unconscionable. Regardless of how it happened, it is unconscionable. And we need to make sure that we're doing right by the people of our city going forward. Chief O'Hara.
Nearly 6 years after these two incidents occurred, we're forced once again to reckon with the deplorable acts of someone who has proven to be a national embarrassment to the policing profession and the continued harm he has caused members of our community. More than another iteration of the hateful and violent legacy of this former employee, this is an example of the cancer that has infected this department. Today is not a day for excuses or attempts at justification. The notion that we are dealing with the bad actions of one employee is false. We are dealing with the ugly consequences stemming from a systemic failure within the Minneapolis Police Department that has allowed for and at times encouraged unjust and brutal policing. I am appalled at the repetitive behavior of this coward and disgusted by the inaction and acceptance of the behavior by members of this agency. Such conduct is a disgrace to this badge and an embarrassment to what is truly a noble profession. Today, I humbly apologize on behalf of the Minneapolis Police to Mr. Pope, to his mother, and to his sister. I humbly apologize to Mrs. Code and to her family. I am sorry for the pain you have endured that has resulted from this incident, from the abuse, and further from this department's disgraceful inability to intervene and hold that former employee accountable. The Minneapolis police failed not only Mr. Pope and Mrs. Code, but through this failure, we put everyone who would later come in contact with that former officer at risk. It's not enough to condemn the actions and failures of the past. These examples show evidence of a systemic failure and a department's culture that totally lacked the ability to hold itself accountable to professional standards. Going forward, we will continue to ensure sufficient processes are in place to identify and intervene early, to prevent misconduct, and to prevent brutality from occurring in the first place. Under our settlement agreement, we will demonstrate that we have done so to an independent evaluator before the court. To be clear, going forward, I will ensure zero tolerance for any conduct by our officers that dehumanizes or brutalizes anyone, regardless of who they are and regardless of what they have been accused of doing. And I will have zero tolerance for any conduct by our officers that provides cover for such despicable behavior. Any officer who does so is a disgrace to all those who wear this uniform with pride and who have dedicated decades of their lives in service to this community. We are called to protect with courage and to serve with compassion. Our community deserves good policing that reflects community values and is effective at keeping all people safe. As Minneapolis Chief of Police, I expect nothing less. The Minneapolis Police has a tradition to recycle the badge numbers that are no longer assigned to a current officer. This badge betrayed and so egregiously dishonored will be destroyed, and the badge number permanently removed from our rosters so that no future Minneapolis police officer should have to wear it.
We'll open to questions.
Mayor Frey, it sounds like you're admitting that there was a culture problem within the department. How can you assure the people of Minneapolis that that culture problem is being fixed and that officers who police like Chauvin are being pulled out of the department and that we don't have more Chauvins in the department now?
We have had a culture problem within our Minneapolis Police Department, and this incident and many others are emblematic of the culture problem. At the same time, where we were 6 years ago is not where we are today. There are officers right now in our police department that are enraged by this kind of conduct. They're embarrassed by the actions of Derek Chauvin and others. And they want to make sure that we are changing that police department from the very bottom to the top. Our chief has stated loud and clear exactly where he's at. The fact that nobody will ever wear Derek Chauvin's badge again is a symbol, but it's an important one. That is not who we want to be. And I think what it also shows is that some of the significant actions that we've taken, including the recent settlement agreement with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, is necessary. We're moving in the right direction right now. We need to make sure that officers who are not on board with that are held accountable. We need to make sure that those that are being part of the change are uplifted. But to your question, can we make assurances? At the end of the day, this is about human beings. And so we can't make an assurance that misconduct in any form will never happen again. But we are going to do everything possible to make sure that the right processes, the right procedures are put in place so that we are doing our part. Chief?
You said that supervisors not only knew of, but approved this use of force. So who is checking on these supervisors?
So these incidents occurred in 2017, which was near the time that the body-worn camera program had begun in Minneapolis. So a number of changes to policies, both related to the use of cameras and to the review of force, have been implemented since then. Additionally, there are further levels of review that are a matter under the settlement agreement that we will be revising and implementing both in policy and in training. And ultimately, we will not be relying only on an individual supervisor or one or two supervisors to review levels of force. That's something that will be handled on a much more robust and serious level, and ultimately reviewed by command rank personnel in each incident.
Are these supervisors who approved this still on the force?
In these two cases, no.
In Zoya's case, why hasn't there been any charges related to that one?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
In Zoya's case, I know Chauvin, there was something that was worked out with the other case, but why don't we see any criminal charges related to Zoya's?
So, Kristen Anderson, City Attorney. We can't speak to, we don't prosecute these cases. We obviously are misdemeanor prosecutors, so I can't speak to why, at the time, the Attorney General's office didn't decide to charge Ms. Code's case. Obviously, they did and got a conviction on Mr. Pope's.
Mayor, where is the close to $9 million going to come from in the city's budget to pay these newest two settlements?
It comes from the self-insurance fund.
Will any money that you potentially get from the state that you talked about yesterday in terms of surplus fund, would that be going into these settlements at all?
No.
Does this mean overhanging with the DOJ, looking the city into the police department?
Both the DOJ investigation as well as the MDHR investigation went back approximately 10 years. And so this incident and countless others that happened before 2017 certainly will be under review. And so I don't know that this incident in and of itself is the one incident obviously that is reviewed. It's not, but certainly is indicative of the issues that we need to sort out.
Are you concerned about public reaction to the video? You say it's unconscionable. In the Tyree Nichols case, there was a stand-up of police officers for potential response there. Is that on the table here?
Yeah, I'll turn it over to the chief in a second. Look, we understand anger and we support peaceful protest. To be very clear, we do not support violence and we will not tolerate violence or vandalism.
So we recognize, what's different about this case is not only that they're from several years ago, but the officer in question, the former employee, is where he belongs, in prison. So yes, we will be monitoring, and we will have additional officers available and to be prepared should we be needed, to support people's First Amendment rights, but also to ensure that people are able to express their First Amendment rights in a safe way. To protect people from violence and to protect property damage. So yes, we'll be monitoring the situation, and yes, we will have additional officers available and ready to be deployed. However, no, we have no specific indication of anything, any potential risk at this time. And I have been in communication with both state, county, and federal partners, as well as in communication with other major city chiefs around the country, because other cities have had incidents occur recently, and just out of concern that perhaps this could cause a problem in other cities as well.
Real quick, just wanted to speak to the pattern and practice investigations, both the DOJ and the MDHR question. I think that this incident, if nothing else, just sort of affirms that those weren't overreactions to the kind of conduct that we were seeing out of MPD. It was mentioned, there was a question about the supervisors as well. Lucas Peterson, who some of you might recognize as being involved in the killing of Terrence Franklin, was one of the office sergeants on the Pope case. And so I think that we're seeing that if people had questions about, okay, we've had quote unquote one incident with George Floyd. Do we really need to see all of this federal and state power come bearing down on the city? Do we need to see the kind of sweeping changes that we've seen the mayor and the chief institute and initiate? I think that these two cases affirm that yes, these investigations are needed, and yes, that change and that deep, radical change is needed within the department.
Thank you, everybody.
of George Floyd. Of course, Derek Chauvin convicted there of a second-degree murder as well as other charges in that case. So settlements being approved by Minneapolis and the city of Minneapolis. You heard there from